Yeah.
High up, yeah, okay, sorry. High up on the hill path, hidden behind a row of old deodars, a small garden sparkled in the gentle sunlight. Yellow butterflies danced on the broken steps, and children's voices sang the 10 times table over and over again. The white lace curtains on Mrs. Tweedy's drawing room window fluttered gently as she moved closer to peer out into her garden. The wisteria blossom cascading down the wall looked happy this morning, but the sunflowers seemed to be facing the wrong way. They should be looking at the sun and not at the mountains. Most peculiar, thought Mrs. Tweedy, adjusting her spectacles. She sighed and picked up her pen again. Far away, a quail called melodiously, she wrote, but she crossed that out too. The wretched quail had a harsh call. I will just end this story at the sunset. Most readers like a sunset ending. They never seem to get tired of sunsets, she mused and put the cap back on her pen with an air of finality. She could not bear to have her lovesick heroine swooning in her lover's arms yet again. She was beginning to dislike the silly creature. I wanted to throw her down some steep mountain side, but she knew she could not do that. Her readers would be horrified. Anyway, she was glad the story was finished and she could send it off by the afternoon post. When Maud Tweedy came to Simla as a young bride 40 years ago, she did not have to worry about money. Her husband was the headmaster of the Simla church school, and they lived in a large, comfortable house in the school compound. They didn't have much, but they managed quite well. But after he died of a sudden heart attack, she had to find ways to pay for everything. She loved Simla and wanted to live near the Deodar shaded church where her beloved husband was buried. Now Mrs. Tweedy moved aside the curtains and looked out again. Why was Boris walking down the mall so early in the morning? He never came up unless he had some really urgent work. Boris, now grumpy and fat, had once been a great hero in the Russian Civil War. He had fled to India with many other unfortunate Russians to save himself from Stalin's Great Purge in 1936. His entire family had been executed for being relatives of a traitor. Now he lived in the underbelly of Simla, somewhere, somewhere, and somehow making a living doing mysterious things. Mrs. Tweedy moved back from the window and waited. She hoped Boris would drop by for a cup of tea. He loved drinking strong black tea with lemon, and they both loved to gossip. He told her dark tales from the native quarters, and she regaled him with the doings of the British Saabs and Memsaabs. Mrs. Tweedy always knew what was happening in Shimla, though she hardly ever left her little cottage. Somehow news from every part of Simla flew in through her cottage door and was stored in her formidable memory to be mulled over and commented on later. Ram Sen, inspector of Shimla police, ran briskly up the stone steps and knocked on the door. As he waited, he looked around at the flowers sparkling from every corner of Mrs. Tweedy's garden. This summer it was looking brilliant, the lawn a carpet of soft green and the flower beds filled with a variety of English blossoms. His garden was the envy of all Memsabs, and Ram felt very happy about it. Together, they would often gloat over other failed gardens and then laugh at themselves for being so childish. I was very happy when Mrs. Peck's cabbage caught green flies and collapsed. She was always boasting about those wretched cabbages of hers at the flower show, Mrs. Tweedy had said to him the other day when they were reading a chapter from Dickens' Bleak House. So, a little bit more?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so now I'll go ahead and start with the dead body.
The mystery.
When the uninvited guest, Rosa Rodriguez, did not appear for breakfast, Everyone assumed she must be sleeping late, as the girls of her kind always did. Those gathered around the table sipped tea, ate burnt toast and lumpy marmalade, and gossiped unkindly about the absent guest. It was very satisfying at this early hour of the morning to be malicious about someone they did not like at all, someone they did not know at all, yet disliked with a mild passion, which gave each of them a delicious thrill, tinged slightly with guilt, like an extra sprinkling of chili pepper. Mr. William Parker Smith, Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Simla Hills, sat at the head of the table, wrapped in a crumpled copy of the Times. He was very possessive about his newspaper and did not like anyone touching it before he'd finished reading and then rereading every word. The servants picked up the newspaper with gloved hands and kept it on a tray next to his plate on the dining table the day it arrived. And for the next 7 days, he read the same paper with meticulous care. When he looked at the vividly colored paintings of the brown, glistening limbs of young tribal women, he cast aside his guilty feelings by telling himself that he was doing his best to keep the wheels of the British Empire running smoothly by learning about these forgotten people of the empire. After all, these poor tribal people were also loyal subjects of His Majesty. So what if they'd never heard of him and His Majesty had no idea of their existence? Mrs. Parker, Mrs. Parker Smith, sorry, I just moved. William's sister Emily sat next to him, mixing herbs in her special Chinese teapot. She was just 3 years older than him, but looked much older because of her plump, wrinkled face that seemed to be forever in the throes of some agony. Deep furrows of discontentment ran from her thin lips to her nose, crisscrossed by fine lines of irritation. Emily had invited herself to Simla to stay for the summer season at her brother's house, Chartsville Hall. And now that she was here, she complained bitterly about the household arrangements and her health. Emily was as strong as a farm horse, but she liked to imagine herself fragile and ailing with mysterious illnesses that doctors in India, as well as in England, had not been able to find out about. Her Highness Rani Saiba of Manon, or Mins as her friends called her, was dressed in a pale pink chiffon sari and a very low-cut blouse which exposed her ample bosom. A bit too much flesh to be displayed at breakfast, and all those flashing diamonds. She must be at least 40, but she tries to look like a young girl, thought Emily, staring at Rani Sahiba. I wish Helen had not invited her to Simla for such a long visit. The house gets so crowded, and all those untrained servants can't cope. Emily flapped a napkin to show her irritation at the cigarette smoke Rani Sahiba was exhaling in her direction. Stupid old bitch. She should have had breakfast in bed and not displayed her haggard face in daylight, thought Rani Sahiba, taking a sip of the lukewarm tea. Now I'll just go ahead a little bit. Matilda climbed the stairs slowly, one step at a time. She really wanted to sit in the garden, rest her aching back for a bit in the sunshine, and shell the peas for Bharu, but she had been sent upstairs by Miss Mary to wake up the girl. The girl was causing a lot of problems for all of them. They called her the girl with yellow hair downstairs in the kitchen. She is not from a noble family like our Mem Saab, she had said to Soni last night as they washed the dishes well past midnight. It was not a part of her duties to wash dishes, but she often helped out Soni and Baru in the kitchen. There had been too many people for dinner last night and they needed her help. She did not mind since she did not have much to do here. Her Memsab was a true lady, and she had saved her life, though they never talked about it anymore. The past is past, forget it, Matilda, Helen had said. But Matilda would always be grateful to her for rescuing her, giving her a new life. Matilda reached the top of the stairs, stopped for a few moments to catch her breath, and then knocked on the door. There was no answer. She frowned and knocked again. Lazy slut of a girl, she muttered under her breath and pushed the door open. Matilda stood frozen for a minute and then she opened her mouth and began to scream. The girl lay on the carpet, staring at the ceiling with wide open eyes. A wasp was hovering over her face. Matilda did not go near her, but she was certain the girl was dead. "Oh, Mother of God, preserve us from evil," she cried, clutching the door. She put her hand on her mouth to stop herself from screaming. "Oh, help me, Lord Jesus, sweet Jesus, protect me," she chanted. Her head was spinning and she could hardly breathe. She noticed in a blur that all the lights were switched on in the bedroom and sunlight danced on the dead girl's face. Matilda crossed herself quickly and ran out. She stumbled down the stairs, landing at Mary's feet in a heap.